Yesterday was a really tough day. Um, there's a lot going on at the moment. Front and center is making sense of my diagnosis, and there's just a lot to get your head round, I think. And I'm sure any other late diagnosed neurodivergence will relate. It's just, yeah, it's quite an exhausting experience. I mean, it's exciting because you're discovering yourself and reassessing everything in your life. But it's just quite a lot. And ultimately, a lot of us neurodivergents don't like change and find change difficult. And this is a massive change to suddenly be thinking about yourself in a whole new light. So that's going on for me. However, the main issue yesterday was the fact that we are having building work done on our house, which is amazing. We are very lucky to be having it done, and it's James's pet project. He is really excited. He's done an amazing job on kind of designing and project managing and working everything out. So I'm really happy for him. But having builders working on the place that I'm living, or having any kind of outside intrusion, an electrician coming around, a plumber coming around, is really difficult for me. And it always has been. And in the past, I tried to ignore that, or just I was quite nasty to myself because I thought, well, it's not a big deal. Just what's your problem, basically? And so therefore you don't address your needs and you don't give yourself the space and protection that you need. Because ultimately, it is a stressful situation having work done to the place you live. That's your safe space. And I think it's a natural thing. But for me, I think how I make sense of it is that your kind of sanctuary and your safety place is being threatened in some way. Like, it's kind of quite a primal feeling. And it's also something to do with the fact that outer masking self and the inner masking self, the lines are becoming blurred because you've got your safe space where you should be able to be your inner self, and that's somehow being infiltrated by the outside. When I was at home living with my parents and was really, not very well at all, I found it so difficult if they had friends round or relatives round. And if it was during the day, I would make sure I was out. And if it was in the evening, I would hide upstairs and tiptoe around and, kind of be watching the clock until I knew that they were expected to go. And then I could get my dinner things together. Like, if my parents were having a dinner with people, it would be even more complicated because then I'd have to bring all my dinner ritual OCD paraphernalia like upstairs, but it didn't feel right because I wasn't eating at the usual table where I normally ate. So that would be difficult. And then I'd struggle to eat because I didn't feel comfortable. And then just the relief when those people left the house and I could breathe and I could actually feel hungry and like I could actually ingest something. That's so familiar, and it was so frustrating to me, and I felt it made me a really unpleasant person because I was like, I should be able to just go down and say hi to my auntie or to the family friend, and much as I told myself they don't care and you can just do what you want, I didn't feel that. I've under threat is the simplest way I can kind of describe it. So yesterday we had scaffolding the outside of the house, and then there were also people coming in the house to do kind of testing for stuff. So from the minute I got up, I just felt on this kind of alert freeze state. What makes it really difficult in those situations is that it really affects my digestion, and I get pain and I get discomfort and I feel sick. And probably my biggest issues are around the level of comfort in my own body and digestive distress, or so in these kind of situations, it's so uncomfortable for me. And that in itself is enough to kind of send me through the roof. Now, I think I pretty much like cried about once an hour yesterday. That's what it felt like anyway. It's this feeling of tantrum and overwhelm, and I can't deal with this anymore. Just to add to the problem, I also had to go to a therapy appointment and I'd asked if we could do it on Zoom and that wasn't possible. So I either had to go to my appointment, which is important to me and means a lot to me and is very helpful to me, or I had to miss the appointment. And I flip between the two. When I'm in those headspaces, I can't kind of make rational decisions. So I panic and can't, I flip from, oh, I definitely can't do it. I can't leave the house. I can't do it. I can't go. But then also, but I can't miss my appointment and I need to get out there and do it. And so the kind of that conflict inside is, I just can't, I don't know what I'm doing. So from the minute I got up, I was having to look after the dog while James was speaking to people downstairs and kind of being available. I had to be upstairs with the dog, and he was kind of barking and whining and just wanting to get involved and say hi to everyone. But we just needed to keep him out of the way. So I had that, and then I'm also not able to do my usual morning routine, which is on my cross trainer downstairs. I have a ritual that I go through in the order that I check my emails, look at my social media. It's all in the right order and in the same place. Wasn't able to be downstairs on my cross trainer. Even on the occasions when I think that mentally I'm fine with a change, often my body will be the thing that's telling me that it's not. And I'll realize I'm really not breathing, or that I've got massive back pain and kind of torso cramps almost. My digestion is just so uncomfortable. Then I had to decide, am I going to go to my therapy appointment? I did go. It was really difficult because all I need to do in those situations is move and let the energy out. And that's why the cross trainer is the best thing for me, because it's rhythmical and it soothes me and it encourages me to breathe. And in a therapy session, I'm sat there for 50 minutes, an hour, and I'm sitting. And sitting during the day can be really difficult for me, especially if I'm experiencing digestive discomfort. I had to go in, and I said to her when I arrived, I was like, this is going to be really difficult. And I pretty much started bawling my eyes out straight away. I was so aware that I just wanted to move. I didn't not want to be sat still. I was, kind of anything I could do, like just moving my hands. I allowed myself to do that because I was like, look, she knows the situation. She knows exactly what's going on. You know what you need. And if you need to be moving and just doing things to soothe yourself to get through, you go for it, girl. We talked about, why the building work is so unsettling and kind of the sensory aspect of bangs and crashes and drilling, and you don't know when it's going to come, and then the dog going off if there's a particular noise, or and just this feeling of the personal space being invaded, and it just is just the worst feeling. And much as my rational brain tries to override that, that is just how I feel. And now I'm learning to kind of honor that and acknowledge that and accept that for what it is, rather than trying to pretend it's not there and I should just get over it and be fine, because I'm not fine. It wasn't easy. I'm really glad I went to my therapy appointment, because it's always valuable, and I'm really happy with the therapist I'm with now. It's worked really well, and definitely kind of paved the way for me being able to have this diagnosis, digging a bit deeper and knowing myself better, so that things were already exposed. And then when it came to, thinking about things in a neurodivergent sense, I kind of already had an inkling, because we'd already almost got there. But yeah, I cried a hell of a lot. I think that's the most I've ever cried in a therapy session. And I've cried quite a lot in therapy sessions, as we all do. Came back from therapy, got on the cross trainer. I did so much exercise yesterday. I think I did 5.5 hours exercise yesterday. It wasn't fun. I did a lot of walking up and down as well as the cross trainer, kind of pacing, a lot of moving in rhythmic ways, self-soothing, I suppose, wrapping myself up in a blanket or my dressing gown. Not a nice place to be. I can't think straight. I can't relax. I can't let go physically. It's very difficult. I also was so uncomfortable and just fretting about the fact that my digestion was all over the place. Like, this is my recurring thing that I come back to, and that really takes over far too much of my life. I'd like to think that by beginning to look after myself better as a neurodivergent person, that aspect of my life will become easier, because it's just a pain, to be quite honest. I hate it. The fact that I'm thinking about my insides like 24/7 is not, like, what a way to live. But the main way that I deal with these situations is just to keep moving. So I did. I was just cross trainer and distraction and, play solitaire on the cross trainer and, whatever it was, just to kind of get through. Then finally the builders go and my body relaxes. I need to go to the bathroom. And I mean, it's so funny. Yeah, so felt better in that sense. Felt, wires frayed, burnt out, but still very buzzy. Had a shower that helped, really kind of, just some cleansing, soothing. And then I just decided, after a good cry, I was just like, I just need to go and lie down and not necessarily even sleep, but just regulate myself in some way. Now, I haven't been doing that recently, and I realized that I've been missing out that thing which I'd started to do, which was just escape up to my room. I've got this is where I record, is my room, when I've got my recording studio here, but I've also just got a bit of space and like a nice kind of fluffy mat and like my beanbag. And look, I created a sensory escape room, a sensory sanctuary, before I even knew I had autism. So I was beginning to learn how to look after myself even before we actually knew who on earth I was. So I was getting into the habit of coming up here and just having some time to just kind of, sometimes I napped, sometimes I just laid down and stared at the ceiling or like put some soothing music on or journaled or yeah. And I realized I have not been doing that for the last few weeks. And surprise, surprise, my stress levels have been higher. My physical pain has been higher. So I was like, okay, that's right. I'm supposed to do that because that really, really helps me. So I managed just to come up here, and I think for about 45 minutes, I just laid down. I had the soothing music on, time out. That really helped. And then my evening was still difficult. Certainly, my OCD is always difficult around my evening meal. I tried to be as kind to myself as I could be and let go of some of the OCD things which are just an extra burden, whilst keeping the routines and setting up of my meal that make me safe and feel okay to eat. I had a decent night's sleep. Today is a kind of, I'm just gonna call it like, it feels like a hangover day. It's just a period of recovery and kind of everything kind of going, oh my God, what have we just put ourselves through? I feel tired, but I also feel kind of a bit jangly and kind of still a bit buzzy. My body hurts, like my body is in pain. The tension that I held in my body yesterday means that today, like, I have kind of like rib pain and side pain. It's kind of like period pain, like cramps as well, because it's like my insides and my digestion have been like so kind of contorted and just like, yeah, like almost in spasm, that it hurts when it releases. I remember when I used to do ballet competitions and dance like festivals, at the end of a day of that, I would come home and I would be doubled over in pain because like my whole insides have been so tense and so it just kind of knotted, that when I got home, it was like agony, like, and I couldn't eat anything, and all I could do was kind of curl up. And so I think it's a familiar kind of feeling, just that after effects, hangover of that much tension and stress in my body. And it's difficult for me to notice when I'm tired, because generally even when I'm tired, my brain is still going off full steam ahead. So I really have tried today to reset myself, to slow myself down. None of what happened yesterday was a new experience to me, but I have a new framework for it. I am now able to see it for what it is, which is sensory overwhelm and my autistic brain struggling with change and disturbance to routine. And I guess that had been building up. Like, it wasn't just like it was yesterday with the builders. We actually had some scaffolding put up last week, and we also have had to move the house around. So we're not having our usual space where we relax in the evenings. We've had to move to another room, and everything is kind of crammed in, and I can get round them and I can deal with it. Of course I can. But it's a stressor to my inner, neurodivergent system. I just have to accept that. It's like if we go on holiday or if I have to stay away somewhere for work, I always kind of end up finding a new routine, a new way of doing stuff in that place. So it's like, okay, I can't, maybe do the same rituals in the same order and the same pattern because the layout of the kitchen in the place that I'm staying is different, for example. But day 2, I do what I did on day 1, and then that becomes a routine because I clearly crave that structure and that ritual and that soothing that comes with it. So I'm trying to kind of work in that sense and be like, okay, this is the new normal for a while. But underneath it all is just this feeling that I've always expressed it as when the world slips sideways and I just want everything to go back to normal. It's that feeling of just like, why is everything feeling out of whack and out of kilter? And it's really very difficult to find any kind of grounding and sense of peace and stability in those kind of situations. So I'm trying to cope with the situation as best I could, but I'm also trying to really authentically accept how I'm feeling. And with that awareness, ask myself, and James, love him to death, is asking me that too. What do you need? What will help? And I don't always know yet. I don't know whether it would be better for me to just leave and to just go and stay at my parents' for a day or 2. It might be. But then I'm like, but is that better? Because I may be away from all the disruption, but I'm then also away from James, and he's like such an anchor for me, and as is the dog, and then I can't quite do my routines in the same way, and I've got to kind of deal with my parents, and I don't know the answer. Oh, my brain. I have a funny brain, but so do a lot of other people. So I'm not alone. And now I know that I'm not alone, which is really nice. So I hope that by talking about some of this, even if just one kind of tiny little grain that you might be able to relate to, that it just makes you feel a bit less alone, or a bit less weird. I don't know, because we are weird, but it's okay. And my weird is going to be different from your weird, and all that we can do, and all that I'm at the very beginning of doing is start to understand ourselves better, to see ourselves fully for who we are, what we want, what we need, and to begin trying to meet those wants and needs a bit better than we probably have been doing for the rest of our lives. So there we go. I'm now going to go and try and have a nap.